Welcome back. You're still watching NewsLink on DSTV channel 403. Unworkable and unlawful. That's how the Helen Suzman Foundation is describing the Employment Service Amendment Bill. It seeks to regulate the employment of foreign nationals in South Africa. The foundation's Anton van Dalsen joins us now to discuss this further. Anton, good morning and thank you very much for your time. I read through your submissions. You honestly put forward some interesting points, most certainly worth a broader discussion. Now, as a starting point, you raise concern on the proposed ministerial quota system, which would essentially see the minister prescribing a maximum quota for employment of foreign nationals in any sector. Now, you say this might not pass constitutional muster. Just unpack it for us.
Yes, certainly. I think just before I start, one point we must just be very clear on. When we say foreign nationals now, we mean, and as the bill says, these are foreign nationals who are in South Africa legally. We're not talking about illegal immigrants or whatever. But having said that, I think the major point of concern revolves around the quota system which is proposed in the bill. And I think the problems come out of the government's own draft national labour migration policy, which is dated February of this year. And I'll just quote two pieces from that to you and you'll see what the problem is. The one is, it says, and I quote, "South Africa does not currently have adequate data to measure reliable estimates of the stocks and flows of foreign labour in South Africa. This makes it difficult to measure the impact of migration on the South African labour market." And then further on in the same document, it says, and I quote, "In view of the fact that the imposition of quotas may impinge on the constitutional rights of those affected thereby, it needs to take into consideration several qualifications, amongst which is the requirement that the imposition of quotas has to be informed by labour market evidence requiring this." So the government's own draft policy document sketches the problems very clearly. And that is that there is no adequate data to decide on anything like quotas. And if the minister... Yep, please.
I suppose that is a serious concession if you look at it, because one would think that's where they would have started. That if you're going to have this bill and you want citizens to make submissions, you would have at the very least have had the data that has informed at least the proposed or draft bill.
One would have assumed so, yes.
And then what about South Africans who are of the belief that quotas are important, particularly if you're looking at South Africa now, where some of them are saying they've got to be prioritized because we've got record high unemployment and also the economy hasn't been growing as it should?
Now, I mean, it's clear, I recognize those concerns. We're in a situation in South Africa where there's very high unemployment, so it's logical that there would be concerns. But our concern is that the tabling of this bill at the moment and the contents of the bill is more about a political message that is being sent by government instead of actually dealing with a problem. And as I said, if you don't have the data, how can you decide on quotas? It's just impossible. Yeah, I think that's our major concern.
So how should they deal with this? If at the very least you're saying this is for expediency, how should they meaningfully deal with this problem? Because it has divided citizens. As we have this conversation, there will be those of the view that this, like I said, this bill was important because they really feel left out of the economy at this point. So how would government meaningfully deal with this issue, be it migration, be it the labour policies? Because right now, I know with the national labour policy, they also are looking to even regulate the foreign nationals who can also open businesses in the informal sector.
And I think the major point is here they need to have a proper assessment of the labour market. They need to have the data. And there are studies, and these are quoted in the government's own draft policy, which I read from a few months ago. There are a number of international studies on the South African labour market, which actually say that it's better to allow a certain number of foreign workers in industries because it's better for the economy. There's data to back that up. So purely coming down like a sledgehammer on the issue of foreign workers must be sent home. It's not going to solve the problem. And in specific sectors, one can just imagine that if you are allowing skilled foreign workers in to be employed in specific growing sectors, that it will actually help that sector and help South Africans to get employment in a growing sector. So I think one must move away from the knee-jerk reaction of, all foreigners must go home.
And then what of the employers that have taken advantage of government's slow pace in dealing with this matter, insofar as actually hiring foreign nationals to exploit them, where they are paid less than their South African counterparts? How do we remedy this? If perhaps you were to say this bill, like you said, would not pass constitutional muster, then how do you remedy this other problem where even those foreign nationals who are legally in the country are in fact being exploited, not paid what is due to them?
Yeah, that's a very good point. And this point is addressed in the bill. And not everything in the bill is bad. I think it's a good starting point for government to try and regulate this area. And the good point is very specifically that the bill prevents unequal terms of employment between foreign nationals and South Africans. So it does address that issue. And I think it's an important issue because otherwise one has the danger of employers trying to take advantage of a situation.
But I know in as much as you lauded that aspect, that on the penalties front you would have those employers being penalized, but then you also say there also seems to be potential to also penalize the foreign nationals themselves.
I think if there is any contravention in this area, it's the employers who need to be penalized and not the workers.
All right, Anton, thank you very much for your insights. Certainly a very, very interesting conversation. That's Helen Suzman Foundation's Anton van Dalsen. And more news and updates.